Welcome back to Power CEO's Truth Behind the Business. We are back here with our AI moment of the week, and I'm super excited to have our resident expert in all things AI, Dr. Alan Badeau, here with me. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to dive into this because this is something you and I have talked a lot about off the air, on the air, on your show, on my show. But let's talk all things AI and customer experience. How can AI be leveraged to transform the client or customer journey and experience? How is AI changing the way that companies engage with their customers?
Yeah, that is a really great question. You know, when you take a step back and you look at the power of AI, it's not just about speed. It's not just about being able to answer questions. It really can fundamentally change the interaction between the user and a product, or the user and a certain company. It's reshaping the landscape in what that interaction and that digital experience is becoming, and really the vernacular is changing, because digital experience now means so much more. It means, how does the AI present information? How does it ask information? How do I, as a human, expect it to receive the information and be able to understand that? But then what kind of response is it shaping for, to make sure that I understand it? And so, there are so many different fields of AI that are looking at the problem, and it's that, everybody gets a little bit more advanced. You start stacking these sort of things in together. So for instance, if you call in now to a customer service desk and you're very angry, the AI is going to recognize that you're angry, and it's going to switch how its response is going to be. That kind of technology, that wasn't around, 3-4 years ago, and it's really changing the landscape. Now, we talked about the ethical piece, right? Before, it also has some implications around that to think about, as, do humans, as they call into a service desk, for example, should they know that they're talking to an AI or not? Because quite honestly, you can't distinguish, in most cases. And so, it's really that entire experience, and making sure that it's being presented the right way, and you're getting more information out of it. Your interactions and your understanding of their needs are a lot better. Those are the things that it's really reshaping.
So, I mean, you're talking about personalization. Personalization is a
Absolutely.
huge trend in AI. And so, as we think about these highly personalized interactions, and helping our businesses engage with our customers in ways that we're never able to do before, what are some of the top things that companies, executives should focus on when they're considering using AI for customer engagement?
Yeah, I would say the easiest thing is to start small. Start with a small piece. The biggest mistake that companies made, and there are statistics around this, that when OpenAI released GPT 3.5, there were 1,000 companies within an hour that said, "Oh, we've got OpenAI's ChatGPT integrated into our product." Okay, so that raised a little bit of a red flag, scared me, saying, okay, you know what? It just came out. The API has just been released, and now 1,000 companies already have it and they're using it. That's a problem, meaning they haven't been able to test it. They haven't been able to do all those other things that we just talked about, and that's a risk. And so, starting to make sure that you understand how it's going to be used, and that you're ready, your data's ready, your metrics gathering pieces are all fitting nicely together. Your users, you've got a good feeling on how they're going to accept it. There's a whole checklist of things that folks need to do before they deep dive into that, because I got an awful lot of phone calls and a lot of business after that initial rollout, that because maybe 4, maybe 5 out of 10 went bad. And those are some concerns that folks should always have in the back of their minds, is, if I do this, am I ready to accept the implications of if something goes bad? And that's just as important.
Yeah, and I remember back when it first was released, like it was a big deal that you put this was assisted by AI in from a transparency standpoint. Well, let me ask you a subsequent question because I think it's something that I've worked with so many companies. I got all those calls too, by the way. Oh my gosh, how do I put this back in the box? You can't put the genie back in the bottle, folks. Like your
That's right.
brand, you spend a lifetime building it, and it takes one bad response to kill that brand. But you talk a lot about AI relying heavily on user interaction and data. It's continually looping in and learning from its interactions with people. So, how do we, as entrepreneurs, as executives, as leaders, how do we plan for and make up in our process that optimization so that we have that customer feedback loop so it continues to be a positive experience?
Yeah, it's got to start at the pilot project. You can't optimize in a efficient way if you don't have a baseline to start from. So you need to, think about that as you're rolling out your pilot, whether it's internal use or external use. You've got to have some baseline metrics that will allow you and your technical team to understand, how it should perform, and if it starts to slide a little bit, how you're going to reset that. Because otherwise you're going to have you're going to continue to have a moving target, meaning, oh, it's doing okay, but it's only 3%, not a big deal. We'll continue on, and then tomorrow morning it could be 33% because you just went to an exponential issue, and that's not good. And the only way that you can do that is really to have enough data where you feel comfortable that this is your baseline, this is what you're expecting the AI to do. And then, if it deviates from that, you can course correct quickly.
So I know that you and I have talked on your show as well about some of these concepts before, and I'm going to ask you a question because this question it's a key question. Should we focus on internal optimization before we go to external optimization so we have an understanding and our teams have an understanding of everything that could go wrong?
Yeah, I'd love that. And that's what I advise folks to do. Try it internally first, you know, because it's so easy to use your own folks to understand what the experience is, but it's also, like we've discussed in the past, as you are doing these pilots internally, if you can't sell to your own people, you're not going to be able to sell it to anybody else either, because those are the folks that are probably going to be selling it. And if they don't understand it, if they don't buy into it, if it's not successful, then your challenge becomes exponentially harder because you haven't taken the time to really weed out what the good things are, or take advantage of the good things and weed out the bad things. Always, if you can. Now, granted, there are some exceptions to that, but if you can, start with your own people first. Show how it is scaling their ability to do more work, increase their capacity, better their lives, and then as they are presenting to customers, it's a lot easier story to tell.
Absolutely. And that's what, I always think about my team as my most important client, because if I take care of my team, then they always take care of our clients, and our clients will ultimately take care of the business. And that's really kind of a premise that we talk about a lot on the people side, but here we are hearing it on the tech side too. I
Mhm.
have one final question for you today regarding this customer experience. Like, how transparent should we be when we are leveraging the technology for consumer engagement? And how do we prioritize data privacy or message that when we have such a personalized experience?
Yeah, I am a firm believer that anytime a human is interacting with AI, they have the right to know. So anytime that they're using AI, they're calling into a service desk, you should be informed that you are conversing with an AI, because, sometimes just by nature, you are interacting with people, and your interactions with people are very different than they are with systems, with a computer. And, it's just easier to get your point across, or to tell additional information that maybe you wouldn't say to a computer because you're worried about it's being recorded or whatever. However, you know in a world where our digital identity is really our most important asset now, making sure that your data your identity, your information is not being used, if you don't want it to be, to train these models, to, further, increase their capability, that is your right. And I think that, one, it should be part of every company's, ethical policy that they have. And if they don't have an ethical policy already written in how they're using or deploying their AI, that is a problem. But people have the right to know, and we should tell them. Now, from a, all of these laws are, I call them more guidelines, because Europe is ahead of the United States when it comes to, the rules of engagement with AI, how you protect your digital footprint, GDPR, those sort of things are really good foundations for that. The US is behind on that. We've got the president's 12 different, items associated with how AI should be used and how it should be ethically used, but there's no mandate, there's no law, and there's no penalties associated with that. So if you give all your information out and it gets leaked out for whatever reason, companies don't have any penalties when it comes to that. And we've got to get to a point where it's not okay to be fooled by by AI. It's not okay for the AI to leak our information, and it may not be okay if we don't give permission to use our data to train these models, because we don't feel comfortable with that. And so as we evolve, I think it's some of that is going to come into play from a legal perspective. We're starting to see legal challenges around using code, for example, to train models that it's open source, but that doesn't mean it's free for you to train on it. And, so it's starting to come together. And I think probably by the end of 2025, I think we'll have a little bit more guidance on that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And, there's some cases moving through. There's a lot of lawsuits being filed about ethical use or misuse of other people's data. So I think we're going to see a lot shake out as well. Thank you so much for your expertise. How can people reach out to you?
The easiest way is my LinkedIn page. You can find me there, or you can find me at alanbadeau.ai, or watch my show on Now Media, AI Today with Dr. Badeau, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Central Time.
Thank you so much for your expertise. And you are going to want to stick around, because we will be right back after these messages.